got our 5 cameras set up, so please can I introduce our President of the BSC, Mike Eley.
Thank you, John. Can you all hear me okay? Well, first of all, thank you for coming this evening and see the film. I'll try and answer any question that you might have about it, but I thought I'd just start by giving you a little bit of background information about it, a bit of history. The film was shot, we shot between August 2017 and January 2018. We shot the film in sort of three blocks actually. First of all, from August to September, October, in Russia, France, Croatia, and Serbia, using three different crews across those countries. One across the board, across all departments. One in Russia, one in Paris, and then one crew for Croatia and Serbia. And we returned to Russia in December of 2017 to film the snow scenes, the scenes as Rudy as a young boy, and then we returned to Serbia in January for some pickups to do some more dance stuff. And like a lot of films of this size budget, which was approximately 12 to 14 million euros, it was a long gestation period to get this film sort of greenlit and on the way, especially for a film which was almost 50% foreign language and no stars as such, no names. Rafe desperately didn't want to be in this film, and he fought valiantly not to be in it, but pressure grew too much, and he realised that it got to the point where the only way we could actually get the financing that we needed for it was for him to be in it. He considered momentarily the role of Rudy, but that really was sorted out of it, and very sensibly went for Pushkin, and we. So the result of the long gestation was I had my first meeting with Rafe almost 6 months before we started shooting, if not more. So while we waited for the green light, it gave us an opportunity to talk about the film, to talk about how we might approach it. We had numerous trips to St. Petersburg and to eventually to Serbia. Mostly St. Petersburg because at the time we wanted to shoot a lot of the film in Russia, but it for a variety of reasons, some logistical, political, financial, it soon became apparent that Russia would not be the main host to this film. However, Rafe was desperate to maintain as much Russian content, real Russian content, as he possibly could, and so hence we had 2 trips there. One for the high summer, the sort of white nights period of Leningrad, and then returning for the winter. We ended up, as you see, we ended up going to Serbia for the bulk of the film, and it worked very well. But we still got the Russians to come to us because we wanted those Russian faces, and I think that's one of the real strengths of the film is those faces look authentic. And I think the casting was quite brilliant for that. What one could go to Belgrade and sort of think, well, it's an Eastern European country. A lot of people speak Russian. Surely we can cast it, a lot of it there. But no, we got when they were Russian, we got the Russians in, and I think that shows. I think that's pretty much apparent on the screen. The bulk of the film is shot on Super 16. The exception is the winter material when he was a young boy, which was on the Alexa Mini. We shot anamorphic for that, and everything else in Russia. We wanted to shoot film in Russia, but we could not be assured of getting film into Russia and more importantly out. There was a lab in Moscow, but we didn't get incredibly positive endorsements about that lab. And for one thing or another, it all became apparent that we would struggle to shoot film there. So reluctantly, we shot digitally. But actually, in the end, especially for the winter stuff, I think it actually played well to mark that difference. And what else can I tell you about it? It was the lab that we did use eventually, even when we were shooting in Croatia and Serbia, was a Cine lab, and they served us really well over here. We had our camera equipment from Ari and Vantage from Ari Munich, and also the Serbian camera house also provided quite a bit as well. And so it was quite a sprawling film, and having different crew, for me personally, having a different crew across those different countries was slightly had some twitchy moments, but I fell on my feet and found some very good people in those countries, and it reminded me that that's one of the joys of making films around the world, around Europe, is that you meet such great talented people out there. So so that's pretty much the broad strokes of how the film came to be. So if you would anyone like to ask a question? Yes, thank you.
Was that the first time you'd worked with a director who's also acting in the film? And how did you find that as a DP, working with that slightly different dynamic?
Yes, I'm trying to think. Yes, I think it was. Yes, it was. It was very interesting. I mean, because, as I say, Rafe didn't want to be in it, so I think he approached it very much from wanting to really get into the design of the film, and didn't. I mean, he's as you probably are aware. I mean, he's an incredibly intense professional who sort of on the screen you can see that he's there's everything, every fibre of him is in that performance, and so it's not something you can just he's going to give it his all, and he did know Russian from a film that he did. I think a film that his sister directed in Russia a few years before, or several years before, and he learned Russian for that. But he was going to be in a film with lots of real Russians, and of course he didn't want his accent to scream out. I have no way of knowing if it did or not, but I hear anecdotally the Russians are very impressed, and it worked really well. Rafe's on-camera stint was about a week's worth, so we were able to sort of ring fence it, and the week leading up to it was you could see that he was going off, sort of learning his lines and getting ready. But he's incredibly collaborative, and I really enjoyed working with him. It was very funny doing the scouts with him, because he would invariably play every role that we were talking about. He would just jump from one, and then get other people to play. It would be a little sort of mini theatre there. So it was good. It was good fun.
Could you speak on your process of working with different crews, different cultures, and especially to do with managing departments when English may not be their first language?
Well, first of all, again, and I don't speak any other language. I'm rather ashamed to say. So, I sort of fall upon other people's, ability to speak English, and lo and behold, a lot of them do. In Russia, it was probably less so, but the immediate crew, the focus puller and the grip and the gaffer were probably three linchpins for me. Their English was very good. The sort of working culture, no great differences. The means at their disposal is quite different. Things in Russia, for instance, were you never quite knew where things came from, and there's a lot of things which just sometimes not turn up, but then turn up from strange sources that the origins of it you didn't ask too deeply. It was just there. I found it quite seamless, really, from one to the other. I've just been working with the focus puller. I was working with in Paris. She's Marie-Sophie Danielle, and I've just been working on another film, and so it was. There was sometimes a language issue, and sort of, especially in the heat of the moment when you want things done quickly, you might sort of bark out something and you realise it's just not landed, so you've got to go again. But to be honest, that's that could happen anywhere. No, I thought it was. I was as I say, I felt very blessed to get the crews that I worked with.
So, Mike, congratulations. Beautifully done.
Oh, thank you.
It really was. And how you managed to have that consistency of the look going to all those different locations.
Right, yeah.
It was beautifully done.
Oh, thank you.
Beautifully done.
Thank you very much.
And the moves that you got. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Great, good, thank you.
And I'm very impressed with the editing.
Yes.
Did Grace have a lot to do with that?
Yeah, well, yeah, he was in on it, all the way, and it was a long process, and right up to the grade, there was some, because it's a tricky story to tell, and we were playing with these timelines the first conversation I had with Rafe, before I was even, anointed as the DOP on it, was, how would we do three timelines and let the audience know where we were at any one time? Because we're not going to announce it. he wanted to minimize the captions, each time you went there, because it's, there's enough reading on the screen as it is, and he just wanted, this is about the third or fourth time I've seen the film, and it's watching it now. I fell into this. It felt like a sort of dreamscape sometimes. The way it sort of went from one to the other. And I think that's what Rafe was always aiming for. But we talked on that first conversation. We talked about how we always wanted that. We always knew that the winter stuff would be. We wanted to. Actually, to be honest, we were going to go real black and white on it originally. That was the first thought, and then for the Paris material, we looked at lots of reference pictures and taking the sort of our cue from the sort of Nouvelle Vague and sort of the new handheld cameras they would have had, and just wanted to make it immediate and feel very, very handheld, very much following the action, and with a slightly sort of pastel sort of feel to it, quite lifted and sort of summery and young and alive and all that, that sort of very vital time. And then Leningrad, the discussions turned to the fact that it should feel not dull and drab, perhaps like sort of Soviet, an evocation of Soviet Russia might be, but very colourful, but very solid and a much sort of harder grade, if you like, sort of richer blacks and sort of more, and trying to get a lot of red in there, of course, then which was there in the production design, and so those were the sort of three looks that we sort of developed and allowed to evolve. When it came to it in the grade, we just felt that real black and white was just a little bit too much of a. We sort of played around a lot with that, and then eventually Asa Scholl did the grading at Molyneux, did a fantastic job, and we just sort of played around with the sort of just introducing a slight bit of colour to it, just enough to give it something other than black and white, and
there's that in the skin tones.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a sort of bleach bypass sort of look, some of it, and again, I think it worked really well with the sort of the skin, the faces. It was really strong. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Hello, I'm here.
Yes. Oh, hello. Hi.
I just wanted to follow up about this looks. Did you have this in mind when you were shooting? Did you talk to DIT? Did you have any LUTs prepared and things like that?
No, not really. I mean, I spoke to Asa in broad terms about it, and I think we did some grain tests early on. But when we found out we would have to take the Alexa to Russia, we was able to go in and sort of just see if it would work, basically, see if that the sort of we could add grain and what kind of grain we could add to it, just to sort of ease that transition from film to that. But no, there was no LUTs as such. We sort of just took it into the grade as it was. But that thing I was describing about the three looks was very much in place as an idea before we started shooting. Yeah, the scene, there's a couple of scenes in Paris that we also shot on the Alexa, which and that was for mainly sort of because we were going into places that we would absolutely have no control over, like the chapel the Sainte-Chapelle. We were only allowed in there at dawn, and it was the very first thing we shot on the film. It was the very first day, and and you want to get off to a good start on the first day, first shot on the first day, and the forecast was quite pessimistic, and they absolutely cut us down to the bone with the equipment, so there was not even a battery light could go in. So I played safe and went with the Alexa, and the same with the Louvre, actually. Yeah.
I have a few questions, sorry.
Of course,
well done, it's very impressive. I mean, from someone coming from Belgrade, I was very pleased that Belgrade is featuring among the Leningrad, Moscow and Paris. Great company to be. Really lovely story. I know as a kid how much it was reported in Yugoslavia about the defection of Nure, and I was surprised that it was not more sort of a big story in the West. But anyway, how many operators did you have? Did you operate yourself? How many cameras did you? Because although you have everything storyboarded according to the titles, how much did you stick to the storyboard? How much did you improvise? Because there is a lot of really authenticity in the camera moves and coverage and everything, and it's really pleasure.
It was predominantly a single camera shoot. We wanted to keep it as that, keep the focus on one camera. Rafe was very happy with that. I was very happy with that, and I operated. When we in Croatia and Serbia, we had for the dance sequences we had four cameras on stage, or around the stage. The only material we shot in Croatia, but as I say, it was the same crew as Serbia, was the theatre. We used a theatre in Rijeka, where most of the dance was played out. And there we had about 4 cameras. There were occasionally some two camera work, but for the sort of crowd scenes when they're going out at night, for instance. But mostly single camera, yeah.
And the scene in front of Hermitage, at what time of the night or day it was shot? Because it looks beautiful.
Well, again, that was because we needed to have control of the streets. We had to be up very early, and of course we were there in the middle of summer, so it could be 2 a.m. and the scene of him walking across the square, was that was at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
And who was grading for you?
That was Asa Scholl at Molyneux. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Your decision to shoot on 16, was that something that was that your decision, or?
Yeah, it came again going back to that very first conversation with Rafe, because there's that journey that's already happened with production, and of course one of my first questions was well, what are we, what can we shoot on? And he was like, he said, it's going to be digital. And it was such a sort of, that's it. And okay. But then so was the length of the sort of pre-production that eventually you can sort of start chipping away and actually, we were in Russia at the time. We were in Leningrad, sort of walking around, and I just said, I think this film just screams out for me to be 16mm. You know, it just and Ray said, yeah, that sounds great. And the producers said, yeah, okay, we'll try and make that work. And then more importantly, the line producer said, yeah, great idea. Now, so, so that's how, you know, that's very often it can be, no, that's how it's going to be. And then you realise, actually, no, you know, it doesn't have to be. But the only way, but not the only way. But I think if you get producers and line producers on board with the idea, you know, and at least even entertain it, then you can start, you know, getting Kodak involved, labs involved, and you know, and they'll start making useful suggestions and ideas, and then it snowballs. Yeah, but I, as I say, you know, it just felt that it should have that, you know, that feel to it.
Can I just ask one more question? Is that right? How many weeks in total did you shoot? Over the whole, you know, obviously it was getting.
Yeah, well, we had, I think about 10 weeks in total, but that would have also incorporated a bit of travelling from Paris to Russia, to get, you know, so, but yeah, probably about that. I think about eight weeks in the first block in the summer, and then a week in the winter, and then the week of follow-up shooting in the January. Yeah.
Hi. Could you speak a little bit about your coverage in the dance sequences and how you approach that? Those rehearsals, and specifically for the theatre official dance sequences, and you know, how did you sort of plan the camera work around the, you know, very specific choreography?
Yeah, well, it was one of the first thing we did. We shot in Paris, then went to Russia, shot in Russia for the summer stuff, and then went to Croatia. So it was quite early on, comparatively early on in the shoot, and we had this theatre for a week because they were closed for the summer, and we had the access to it. So, but it's quite difficult for a dancer to just keep performing at such a high standard again and again, day after day, you know, which is what we would need, you know, just like actors, you just want them to go again. You know. And so we realised we had to really sort of do it in chunks. And in fact, there's no dance there, I think, that was more than 2.5 minutes. It was obviously very tightly choreographed, and I ended up doing these sort of drawings, these very, you know, just line drawings, sort of a plan of the stage, and just where he would go, where he would jump, just with quite crude symbols of just, which I could then distribute to the other cameras, and it was. There was sort of 3 principal positions, you know, on the stage: left, right, and centre, and then there was one sort of floating, either in the wings or actually on the stage. And I did want to be in on the dancing. You know, we talked about, you know, sort of. I mean, I remember going to the ballet at Covent Garden, and sitting sort of, you know, sort of the stalls there, and it's amazing the physicality of ballet, and when they're spinning, and you know, the sweat is spinning off them and sort of covering the sort of first front rows, and sort of, you know, I mean, it's and the controlled breathing and the diaphragms, and you can see that underneath all this control, there's this, you know, these bodies are just about holding together. And I wanted to be in on that, you know, sort of close quarters, and some of it features in there, but yeah, I mean, I was doing everything they were doing, but doing it backwards. So I was sort of following them, and wanted when we did some of the pickup stuff in later on, we did have a techno crane to sort of reach in there and which I think sort of worked a bit better sometimes. But I enjoyed the sort of that sort of close quarters. I didn't feel that I'd seen ballet done like that before. So, but having said that, the other thing that we did learn was that nothing beats being full length for a dancer. You want to see the feet. Simple as that. So although we came up with lots of different angles, shooting from sort of up there, and you feel actually we've got a dancer, let's show him dance. And so it was very often just a full length, very simple.
It's very impressive, I have to say, the way it's covered. You just feel beyond the stage you're then. So I just want to ask, what's your ratio? How much footage you have to shoot to cover that properly altogether?
The dance?
No, the whole film. I mean, what's your and other scenes as well? So just approximately, of course.
Oh, I imagine it would be somewhere between 15 and 20 to 1. Yeah. I mean, we did a lot of takes. I mean, just for the non-dancing scenes, but it was when we did the dancing. It wasn't. We didn't overshoot because, as I say, we couldn't have him dancing for too much. It was very short bursts, and we just got as much out of it from the 4 cameras as we could when he was dancing. So actually, it wasn't that expensive, from that side of things. Yeah.
Were there any scenes that you cut out of the film that was left in the cutting floor?
Yeah. Quite, well, at the end, he was, when you see him walking down that corridor, he actually goes and dances a whole other piece, which I was devastated when I found out, actually. But it worked. It was a nice end, actually. I thought, just to see him sort of exit shot.
I was lucky enough to be his last performance with Fontaine.
Oh, really?
There were 17 curtain calls.
Yeah.
It's almost as long as the performance.
Right, yeah, I bet.
But that was he was so, they were both so loved.
Yeah. Oh, you're very lucky. Yeah. Oh, well done. Yeah. Yes, Ashley.
Mike, I was just going to ask, how did it affect the budget shooting on film if it was originally budgeted for digital? I mean, did it work out more expensive or less?
Well, as far as the original budget goes, so many things changed from that point to when we actually started shooting. So I think any original budget was sort of by the way by that point. I think what we would have, I think because we sort of knew that we were going to just be, a single camera and quite sort of, we had a lot of time to plan, and we just wanted to, not, certainly in the first few weeks, not sort of scare the horses and sort of shoot tons and tons. I mean, we're never going to do that anyway, but I never heard that we, that it was anything, much beyond what they were planning for. And when we, when the lads, come on board and, they provided such a good package, that dealt with everything from, and the rushes going back to London every day, which meant a 3 or 4 day sort of waiting for clearance. But because it didn't always leave Serbia when it should do, because they're not in the EU. So they often used to sit in the airport, taste of things to come, and so sometimes it would be 3 or 4 days. But they did the telecine and the cleaning and everything like that. So no, I think it was. I don't think it had a major difference, to the budget at all. I think I would have been told actually if it would. Yeah.
I've got 2 questions. One of them is, what lenses did you shoot on? And then the other question was whether it was a personal physical marathon for yourself. And it sounds like, because of the short, intense bursts, that perhaps it wasn't as demanding as you would imagine. But then sometimes, I know when I've been shooting myself, and I was thinking particularly of toddlers, where you need to physically react to that kind of physicality and momentum. And I was just wondering how it was operating in that regard.
Sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question again? So, what lenses? Sorry. All the Paris material was shot on ingenue zooms, either 15 to 40 or 28 to 76 ingenue zoom, and I used Cook S4s for the Leningrad material. For the anamorphic winter, it was Hawk V-Light lenses. Those were the only anamorphic lenses I could get in Russia, but I was very happy with them. And operating, you're probably alluding to working with the boy.
It was more the dancing.
Oh, the dancing.
Yeah, and I understand in the set pieces it was multi-camera, but there was still large amounts of movement outside of those sets.
Yeah.
So it was around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I've come from a documentary background. I felt quite comfortable, sort of being on their shoulder, or just lurking around them, and definitely wanted to give them freedom to roam, and it was up to me to try and give them as much scope, as to do that, and having that slight unpredictability is, I think it would give something to it. So I sort of, even if it didn't, even if something didn't move, happen smoothly or exactly right, that felt right sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed having the camera on the shoulder. It felt very much like old times.
Which camera was that?
It was a 416. Yeah. I did ponder about getting my old XTR out of retirement, but no, probably best not.
So just one more question. What was your lighting approach in both sides? Creative, how you designed your lighting for the story, and then what your approach was in terms of choosing the fixtures?
Well, I wanted to keep especially the Paris stuff, very naturalistic, and even across the board, actually, just using practicals wherever possible, and sort of supplementing those. I didn't want to carry a big sort of lighting package. I mean, we weren't that kind of film anyway, but so choosing locations and working with production, designer to give us options for that was quite important, and sort of kept light, sort of coming in from windows and sort of using that as much as possible. didn't want the set sort of too cluttered, and it was it was a joy again to sort of even with the Leningrad stuff, working with the sort of night interiors and sort of, because I only used the 200 ASA stock for Leningrad and bought into the 500 ASA grain for Paris. So again, that was another thing to try and mark the difference between it. But and I mean, normally I sort of even underexposing the 500 a bit, just again to sort of increase the grain, but getting a lot of joy out of that. Even the slower stock for low light is lovely to see the sort of what you can get. But yeah, I mean, I kept it very simple. Didn't add, I think, sort of a very simple keynote package and a few large HMIs for window work, but yeah, pretty simple.
Hello, I'm over here.
Hi.
I was just wondering, in the scenes where you decided not to go fully black and white and you let sort of some colour,
Sorry.
Was there a specific choice for it to be the sort of the teal-y, turquoisey colour and the red that I noticed in several of them, or is that just coincidence? I was wondering.
Well, no, it was a journey of discovery, I have to say, for that one. I mean, that wasn't, none of that was a sort of predetermined LUT or anything. We were, as I say, we were in the grade, and the original thought was black and white, but it didn't feel right for whatever reason, and then I think there was a thought, well, every bit of red in there we could pop out, but again, that seemed too much of a sort of statement, and so it just became that sort of finding that sort of. I think the skin tones sort of determined it, sort of just where they felt something there, just to give. They didn't look too pallid, and there was and a lot of the sort of the scarves and things, they just sort of had something about them, and I think there's some scenes there isn't much colour in them, but then suddenly there is, and the kitchen. I mean that we was led a lot by what was in front of us, and that green on the kitchen wall, which I just loved, and beautiful against the skin. So I think we sort of brought it out a bit more for that scene. But then the scene where they wake up in bed in the morning I think it's probably the most monochromatic scene in that part of the story. So we sort of took liberties with it and sort of just what felt right, as opposed to sort of sticking to a sort of strict rule. Anything else?
Right. I thought the scenes on the train looked very good. How did you do those? Was that on the
stationary? That was a stationary train. They have some fantastic old trains just outside St. Petersburg. Old carriages, and yeah, we had the green screen outside, and then we shot plates going through a forest on a forest road after we did the scene, and I think there were some guys sort of rocking the carriage endlessly. I wish they did. Yeah, and again, those some great faces, really good people. Yeah, so it was poor man's process. Yes.
Thank you so much. I really like this film and this film look. I just want to ask, like, because you said like you use 200 stock and 500 stock in two different places, and when you use aluminium, have you planned to do something for match those different look, and have any like specific settings for the digital things with?
Yeah, well, we were able to do some tests beforehand, and we were able to. The art department were able to get a lot of material and colours that we knew we would be using, because of course most of the Leningrad scenes are actually shot in Belgrade and in the studio. Well, some real locations in Belgrade, but also in a studio setting. And so we were able to establish sort of broad strokes, what the looks would be. And as I say, we sort of worked at looking at the Paris material and trying to get as much texture out of that material as possible. And then knowing that we could go a different route when we shoot the Leningrad material, be more contrasty, have sort of stronger shadows and matching up with the Alexa. And we also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we used the 16mm sensor on the Alexa. To go with the, when we had to shoot the Alexa 4 non-anamorphic Russian material.
What difference does that make? Shooting in 16mm sensor, besides obviously.
Well, they got this using the sort of, you're not using the full size of the sensor. So we were using, for that we were using the. We're using some very old Russian lenses, actually, which helped. So when it came to be projected, we would just get a bit more sort of noise out of it. And then we could sort of help that along with some grain. But there were some very old, rare Soviet lenses which were pushed our way, which actually were quite nice. Any more? No? Okay, well I think that's it. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your questions. And see you again soon.